Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the book of Exodus. Today we're going to be looking at Exodus chapters 25 through 28. And I do have to clarify before we begin. There's certain passages in the Bible that are, we'll call easy reads, okay? They're really, I don't want to use the word interesting, but that you really want to see what happens next. And they're stories with excitement. There's a lot going on, and they're really... It's easy to read and it's easy to get through. This passage in this part of Exodus and moving into some of the laws here, spoiler, it's not going to be one of those times. But it is something that is going to show us some important things about how God's people in these days were able to come before him and how they were able to worship him and experience his presence. In our world today, we don't have to go through these painstaking rituals and things that the Israelites had to do because God sent his son Jesus to be the mediator between God and man. We don't have to go before the ark. We don't have to go into the tabernacle. We don't have to go before the high priest, and they don't have to go into the Holy of Holies because we have a direct line to God through the Son because of the sacrifice that he made on the cross. But so that's kind of another lesson for another day. But here in Exodus chapter 25 through 28, God is going to give his give his instructions to the Israelites on how they're to build the tabernacle, and then what they're going, and even how to build all the furniture inside of the tabernacle. So as you read this, make sure, take a look at it and see the details that God goes to, and the care that he takes in showing these people exactly what he wants and exactly what he wants them to do. And I will, as we go along, I do have a couple pictures I'll show you to kind of artist renderings of what these things look like, and I will show them to you as we go. So we're going to get right into it. And the first thing that we have in chapter 25 is offerings for the tabernacle. So the Lord asked that the Israelites of their own free will may give the materials for building a tabernacle. This is to be God's own tent so that he can live among his people. It's to be made with extraordinary care and attention to detail. In the tent there will be special furniture, an ark, a table, and a lampstand. And then in verse 10 starting, we see about the ark. The ark is a wooden chest about 1 yard long and 2 feet in width and height. It's overlaid with gold and topped with cherubim. This is the Ark of the Testimony, where the stone tablets containing the 10 Commandments are going to be kept. Although Noah's boat and Moses' basket are both called arks, a different word is used here. So this is going to be a very important ark. The Ark of the Covenant is what it's going to eventually be called. And then we have instructions for the table in verses 23 to 30. The table is for the bread of the presence. These are 12 loaves, one for each tribe, freshly baked and placed in the presence of God. And then we see the lampstand. There's to be a 6-branch lampstand with its center seam will provide 7 lamps. It is to be decorated with almond buds and blossoms in gold. And then we have in chapter 26 more details about the tabernacle itself. So the first tabernacle is a tent of meeting which Moses pitches outside the camp. Anyone can seek God there. Moses himself speaks with God face to face as one speaks to a friend. Now the tabernacle is to be a curtain sanctuary within the camp. It can be assembled and disassembled to travel with the Israelites on their journey as God himself does. There's considerable detail about how the tabernacle is to be made and furnished. Mobile meeting tents and pavilions were well known in Egypt long before the time of Moses. Incense altars, too, have been discovered from various Canaanite sites dating from the 10th century BC. So God is giving them specific instructions on how he wants his tabernacle to be built and what he wants inside of it. And it might seem strange to us, but to them, it's kind of like, okay, God just wants us to build a really nice version of what we've already seen in these other places. So the basic structure of the tabernacle is a wooden frame about 45 feet long by 15 feet wide. It's covered with 10 linen curtains. And I will show you, I'll try to put that picture of this up on the screen right now. And so you can look at that. And so the material is generously embroidered with blue, purple, and scarlet thread. It is then protected from the weather by 11 goat hair curtains and layers of animal skins. Inside the tabernacle, it is cool, dark, and airless. There are 2 sections or compartments. The first is the heart of the tabernacle, or the most holy place. Here stands the Ark of the Covenant. The Ark has an atonement cover of pure gold on which blood from the sacrifices is sprinkled. This is a sign that sin has been covered and canceled. The second compartment is the holy place. It is separated from the most holy place by a curtain. This is the curtain with which in Herod's temple will be torn from top to bottom when Jesus dies. And we remember that in the story of the crucifixion, and you can read about that in Matthew chapter 27, verse 51. In front of the curtain is the altar of incense, covered with gold and with horns projecting at the four corners. The altar stands directly opposite the ark. On the north side of the altar is the table for the bread of the presence. On it are 12 loaves, again, especially baked from fine flour and arranged in the presence of God. They remind the 12 tribes that they are always living in God's sight. Every Sabbath, the priest's job is to place fresh bread on the table and to eat the old bread in the holy place. One day, the young hero David will actually, rather shockingly, ask for the bread of the presence to feed his men. 1,000 years later, Jesus is going to actually approve what David has done. He lets his own men pick ears of corn on the Sabbath because he puts people before protocol, and that's exactly what's going to happen when David eats this bread that's only supposed to be for the priests. But in the story of David, when he's on the run and needs food, the priests do allow him to eat that. And so that story is from 1 Samuel chapter 21, if you remember that, because we did read about that a couple months ago. So this was something that wasn't usually done by people that are not priests, but David did it, and Jesus approves it later in the book of Mark, chapter 2, verses 23 to 28. And then on the south side of the altar is the lampstand. In chapter 27, we read about the courtyard. The tabernacle is set in a courtyard about 50 yards long and 25 yards wide. The area is marked out by a high linen screen, hung on posts and held by guide ropes and pegs. This is where the people can assemble when sacrifices are offered or for other special occasions. In the eastern half of the courtyard stands the altar of burnt offering. It has no top, but is hollow to form an incinerator. It is covered in copper and, like the altar of incense, has horns at the corners. The burnt offering from the main sacrifice is offered here. The horns can be for tying animals or for a person to cling to when making a request. Between the altar and the door of the tabernacle stands a bronze basin. This is for Aaron and his sons to wash their hands and feet before they enter the tabernacle or approach the altar. God's work is holy and must be done with clean bodies and with pure hearts. And then the last thing we see outlined here in chapter 28 are the priestly garments. Aaron and his sons are to have special robes. Aaron, as high priest, is to be magnificently dressed in breastplate, ephod, robe, tunic, turban, and sash. The instructions are full of symbolic detail, although the meaning isn't always clear to us today. So when we read through this, there's typically a reason for everything God does, and I'm sure there are reasons for all that he outlines here for the priests, but it's not really easy for us to understand today, and quite frankly, for us today, it's not even that important because, again, like when Jesus came and paid the price for us, he kind of took the place of all this, and Jesus really became our high priest. So that kind of yeah. So anyway, like the linen drapes of the tabernacle, the garments are to be finely embroidered, this time with addition of gold thread. Gold is the color of God's glory. So we can see here that God went into great detail to give these plans to Moses for what he wanted his tabernacle, his ark, and all these things, how he wanted them to look, and his instructions for the place where these people were going to come and worship God and meet God. And so it was very important, and he gave him very detailed, explicit instructions, and we read about those in these chapters today, and we'll continue reading about them moving forward in the book of Exodus. So I know, as promised, very exciting video today, but I hope you're able to learn something here, and if nothing else, you can see how great God pays attention to the details, right? Like, you might think these are little things that are unimportant, like what color things are, what type of clothes the priest is wearing, but God cares about those things. And if nothing else, we can see God cares about even the little details, and he cared about them so much in this tabernacle where these people were supposed to meet with him, and he cares about those things in our lives as well. So that's all for today. I will see you guys tomorrow back in the book of 2 Samuel.